So before we start off, I have a quick poll to take. How many of you have eaten food today? How many of you have eaten anything at all today? The panelists too? If you've eaten, please raise your hand. Yeah. How many of you know where the food came from? None of us, right? And how many of you know what kind of soil it came from? None of us again. It's amazing how every day we eat thrice a day or maybe more, and we don't think about where it's coming from. And every morsel of food, the story starts from soil, and that's why we are here today to talk about soil, because 50% of soil has degraded, which means that it is not able to produce food the way it used to be. And if we don't do anything about it, we are at the risk of losing 90% of soil. And what does that mean for us? If we don't have soil, it means we don't have nutritious food. I think a lot of us are already taking supplements, protein, vitamins and all of that. Our grandmothers never took it because they used to have much more nutritious food. A lot of food, our population is growing at an extremely fast pace, and we are at the risk of not being able to produce enough food to feed all of them. And I leave it to your imagination to sort of think about what will happen if we have more people and less food. And all of you must have also heard that farming has become an extremely risky profession. You hear about farmer suicides, about farmers migrating to cities or towns to move away from their profession, or even children of farmers not wanting to take up that profession anymore. So all of this is extremely connected to how soil health is. And since you're all here at a climate change conference, right now agriculture is a net emitter of carbon dioxide, whereas it can actually be a net absorber, a carbon sink, if you do agriculture the right way. So there is a solution to all of this. We can prevent soil from degrading further, and one of the solutions is regenerative agriculture. Small changes to the way we do agriculture, like soil cover crops, intercropping, and just many other small ways, can actually rebuild soil health and turn the table around. So we have a wonderful set of speakers here today who are doing amazing work on the ground, working with farmers in different parts of the world, and here to share their insights today. So I would like each one of them to introduce yourself and briefly talk about the work you're doing.
Hello everyone, my name is Anand. I come from southern India, and I've been a farmer myself for more than 15 years before I joined the Save Soil movement, where we're working with close to 250,000 farmers and transitioning them into tree-based agriculture. It's a form of agriculture where trees and crops can be grown together. Trees will help farmers adapt to climate change and climate risks, and crops grown in between trees will have the resilience to withstand climate change in the form of floods, droughts, or heat strokes, and so on. This is not something new that we are doing. This has been done for centuries by people, farmers, our forefathers across the globe. In the advent of modern agriculture post the World War II, companies for their vested interest have started pumping in chemical fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides into agriculture to such an extent that the food that we eat, the food that is supposed to nourish us and keep us alive and healthy, has turned into poison. I started my career as a farmer, when I heard that whatever that I eat is adulterated. When I submitted a science project on adulteration, my rice is adulterated with silica, my sugar is adulterated with sulfur, my vegetables is adulterated with pesticides, my fruits is adulterated with post-harvest ripening agents which are carcinogenic. My beverages that are bottled are all having carcinogenic elements. So the only way I can lead a healthy life is to grow my own food, where I don't put any of this nonsense into my food and I can live healthy. That's how I started. I went off the grid. Within 3 years, we were able to grow our own food without using any of these substances, and self-sufficiency was attained in a matter of 3 years. And the excess that whatever I produce, I was able to give it to my friends and families, and that revenue was more than enough for me to live a comfortable life. Then this question came to me that why can't this be done by all the farmers where they can actually live like kings, eating the healthiest food, drinking the healthiest water, and whatever is excess, they can give it to the market and make money out of it. Today, that is not the case. They are the most vulnerable population. So we brought a project called Kaveri Calling, where we are building resilience among farmers, where 20 to 30% of their land is converted into agroforestry systems, and rest of the land they can practice regenerative agriculture, growing their seasonal crops in a way that they don't have to put these harmful chemicals and fertilizers which are contaminating and polluting the food systems. It is not just contaminating the food, because these pollutants are mixed with the water that we irrigate the crops with. They enter into our subsurface soil, into the aquifers. It gets mixed into our drinking water systems. So the water is also polluted. Majority of the population in the world don't drink water through filtration systems that most of our urban dwellers do. So they drink directly from the source of water, and if it is polluted, we are polluting the future generations' health at a genetic level. Today, I don't know if you have heard of cancer trains running from Punjab to Delhi every day. Because of the extent of pesticides that they have used in the past 2 decades, there is a cancer train where the entire train is filled with cancer patients. They're going for treatment from Punjab to Delhi every day and coming back. So what are we leaving our next generation with? So I would like to share more insights into the solutions that we have been working, where the farmers have increased their incomes anywhere between 300 to 800% by doing these kind of agriculture interventions, which has not only increased their income, but they're able to produce yield in par with the chemical systems. So there is a biggest myth that the universities and these fertilizer industries have sold in the market, that if you do regenerative practices or tree-based farming, you cannot compete with the yields that the chemically produced food or chemically grown farmers can produce. That is a complete myth. We have thousands of testimonials, case studies on the ground where these farmers are producing higher yields than their neighboring chemical farmers, and the food that they produce have higher nutritional content, and these content is also tested by food laboratories, so that when we say these things, there is enough proof, and it creates the necessary integrity for the larger world to move towards these solutions. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Rosina Benya. I work with PELAM Kenya, which means Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, the Kenya chapter. I'm the country coordinator there. And as PELAM Kenya, we are a network of civil society organizations. We have a membership of 63 civil society organizations in Kenya, and we are reaching to over 1 million smallholder farmers and pastoral communities. Our main role being promoting agroecological principles and practices among the very vulnerable, that is the smallholder farmers and the pastoral communities. In Kenya, we have 80% of the food that we eat coming from the smallholder farmers, and they are the most vulnerable when we talk about issues of climate change. We have experienced droughts. Before 2024, we had like 5 drought or failed rainy seasons in a consistent row, where farmers were growing food and the rains were not as adequate as it would be. This year, in March, April, we experienced a lot of floods, which also put the smallholder farmers and farmers generally at a risk. And we have also experienced a lot of emerging pests and diseases which were not initially in our food system. For instance, we have had the desert locusts, we have the fall armyworms, and also we have also instances of unpredicted rainy patterns. We are not, it's not the normal, the way in the past we could tell by this date it is going to be raining. We have not been able to do that because the changing of the weather. So these smallholder farmers in Kenya, as I said, they are vulnerable, and some of them have had a lot of impacts on their own health. First, even before we talk about the health of the environment, you have instances where farmers who have used very toxic inputs have resorted to harmful, or their health has been impacted. And in my recent visit, just 1 month ago, I visited one of our tea farmers, and she told me a story of transiting to organic agriculture. She had some health issues, and she continued to visit the hospitals until a point that she just opened to one of the neighbors, and the neighbor advised her, please, could you stop using the inputs that you are using to your farm and see whether your health is going to improve. And of course, she's a tea farmer, and tea and coffee is one of the cash crops in Kenya, highly organized, and most of the time they use a lot of input. So she started trying to transition, and I can tell you the farmer was telling me after she stopped using those harmful inputs, the health issues that she had really started disappearing. She has like 2 years since she transited, and she told me her story completely of her health situation. She's a widow, completely changed. So those are the stories that have motivated us as a network to really empower the farmers to make a way of a livelihood on health, because most of the farmers, they are doing a lot of harmful inputs, some even without protective gears, and some also, most of the inputs are not even the way, the usage is not very clear. So it ends up toxifying the farmer himself or herself even before it goes to toxify the environment, the pollinators, the soil below, the life below the soil. So it has become a little like a need for the farmers there. The other issue is that, of course, there is the issue of indigenous foods, and we have been able to, with our Tanzania chapter, we have been able to do some analysis of some of the indigenous varieties, like maize is our main main food crop in Kenya, and we did an analysis of the indigenous foods and the new hybridized maize, and we found out that the indigenous maize was having more nutrients from a lab analysis, from scientific report, that they were more healthy. And we have seen also the need to transition, and every year now we are organizing annual indigenous seed fair. But on top of that, as a network and as a movement, we have been advocating for the rights of the smallholder farmers. We have also been pushing for the policies that are in favor of the smallholder farmers, and I'm happy to say that in Kenya right now we have the National Agroecology Strategy, which as Pelam Kenya we have really worked closely with the relevant ministries and the government to ensure that it's taking a step notch higher, and it's recognizing agroecology as a climate resilient pathway, and it's going to be launched on the 28th of November. So as a country, we are very looking forward to that. We did a National Agroecology Symposium like 2 weeks ago before we came to the COP, and it also created a lot of interest. So it's a growing movement in Kenya. The other thing we have been doing is a lot of capacity development, because the farmers need a lot of capacity support and also the extension support and all that. So we have also as a network focused on that, and we have also been trying really to share the knowledge coming from the farmers through our knowledge management platform. But also key to note is that we have now what we call the local territorial markets. We are trying to encourage farmers to also produce locally and try to, as much as possible, to also sell locally, because the shorter the food chain, the better it is for the environment, because it doesn't have to pollute the environment with the long travel chains. We are not saying we can't trade inter-country or wherever, but we are saying if we can maximize the local potential, that is good. And I think in Kenya, of course, as the government have one of the key strategies in the what we call the bottom-up transformation agenda in Kenya is increasing yes, the export, but also reducing imports. Yeah, but we are trying to encourage farmers to also eat locally, and that way we also encourage indigenous foods because they are locally identified, and as I said, they are more nutritious. Yeah, so we are part of the movements in terms of enhancing agroecology as a pathway to resilient food systems which are safe for the farmer, safe for the planet, safe for the consumers, and safe for everyone. Thank you.
So, good afternoon. My name is Mauricio Alcântara. I am co-founder of Instituto Regenera in Brazil. And I would like to begin with a little saying that's common among the rural producers organizations in Brazil, that it's, in Portuguese says, se o campo não planta, a cidade não janta. that translated say something like, if the people in the if the farmers don't plant, the city doesn't eat. Because, but it's also, that's of course true, but there's a disconnection between the food that arrives at big cities and where do they come from, and what's the connection between the people who's eating that food and where it's produced. And since 2020, we've been working with in different areas in Brazil, working together with farmers' organizations, associations, cooperatives, and civil society organizations, specifically to think together on ways to access market in the city, because agroecological production is still really narrow. It's a narrow share of the overall food available in the cities, and it's something that's really dangerous, because we are talking about a country that has a big issue on fighting hunger, a country that has a great that has a great history on public policies on fighting hunger, on assuring or finding ways to assure the food and nutritional security of the population with public policies such as the national school feeding programs, the national guidelines for the dietary guidelines for the Brazilian population, which is really well recognized worldwide. However, when you talk about food that arrives to the city, people go to the supermarket and have no idea where it comes from. And we started searching in Belém. That's the city, since 2020 we've been working in Belém. That's the city that's going to host COP30. And we found out that despite being in the most biodiverse biome in the world, with a lot of rural producers around, not only farmers but also collectors, we have a lot of indigenous populations, quilombola populations, and riverine populations, and other traditional populations groups with a very unique food culture. However, this food culture translates into the city in a very shallow way. Doesn't have too much connection with the city. For you to have an idea, it's in the most biodiverse biome in the world, and 80% of the food that arrives to the public supply center comes from other Brazilian states. That's because of policies that date from the 70s, with a national integration program that prioritizes foods coming from very far away instead of prioritizing local farmers, local producers. So we have been developing together with the farmers' organizations and cooperatives ways to access markets, either by strengthening fair trade market initiatives, whether by accessing public policies. In other regions of Brazil, we have a project for including native fruits from the Atlantic rainforest into the school feeding menus, because these are fruits that are being somehow forgotten, because they are not on the list of prioritized foods that can circulate around the country. That's are common all around the country. So those foods are starting to get missed. So we started working together with the public halls, with the education departments, to include those fruits in school meals, because the Brazilian school meals program is really strong. And so with that we can assure market access throughout the year to the producers. They are producing native trees that are helping to reforest that region instead of planting soybeans for exportation, for example. And now we are going back to Belém. We have, since COP30 has been announced, we've been working together with the government, making a really strong advocacy campaign to assure that the food served at COP30 is from agroecological production and from this local social biodiversity. Because not only it's better to have good food served to receive all the world, but especially to show that it's possible to feed a big event with the available producer base. And not only the event, but to show, with that we can show that it's possible to feed the city after that with that production base. Whether the local retail, but especially the local public procurement, just such as school meals. For you to have an example, Brazil is expecting 50,000 people for the blue and green zones next year. In the metropolitan area of Belém, there are 390,000 students on the public schools. That means there are 8 cops eating every day in the public schools, and this market isn't reached by the moment by these producers. So we're like trying to make these connections between producers and market opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. My name is Sheikh Imran Hussain Chaudhry. I am also from India, from southern part of India. So I am the founder of a company called Prakriti. We work with farmers to help them transition to agroecology, and we focus a lot on seeds as well. So I started my journey 3 to 4 years ago during my college, when I set out really passionately to work on sustainable soil. I really wanted to build sustainable farming systems, work with farmers, and to overall drive towards sustainable food systems. And very ironically, I went to Punjab to study agriculture. And for those of you who don't know, Punjab is the most chemical-rich agriculture region of India. So when I went to Punjab, I was focusing a lot on plant pathology, and I was studying trichoderma, which is a beneficial soil fungus found in most of the soils. It's the most abundant fungus as well in soil. And when we started studying trichoderma, and we did an assessment of all the districts in the state of Punjab in India, we found out that there was no viable strains of trichoderma in the soil. That's when we realized our soils are dead. Right? And that's what initiatives like Save Soil and many others across the country are trying to revive. Soil has been a key challenge. So we started experimenting and started a research project to understand how agroecological inputs like cow dung and different concoctions made out of cow dung, cow urine, some leaves and flowers can be used to grow naturally, can be used to support regenerative agriculture and become more sustainable. And that's when we did a lot of trials, sample studies, and we found out, we were doing our study on maize, by the way. And then we found out the difference of growing patterns of maize when you grow it in chemical-rich soils and in naturally grown soils. And then we realized the difference is huge. That's when I realized that seeds are the key to this change. And we really set out talking to all the farmers. And just like all of you have mentioned, we have lost track as consumers of where our food is coming from. I believe our farmers have lost track of where their seeds are coming from. So seeds are the key challenge in agriculture today. So most of the farmers are reliant on hybrid seeds, at least in India, and I believe that's the same across different parts of the world as well. So what we do not acknowledge is when we transition to agroecology, we are still using hybrid seeds. And hybrid seeds are designed to suck out all the nutrients, water, chemicals out of the soil. And when you transition to a system where we are trying to do the opposite, that's when people start seeing results which are not so favorable, and people start complaining about it. So this is when we realize we also need to promote seeds. We also need to build a network of farmers and save seeds, exchange seeds, and conserve our biodiversity, which is also a heritage, but also very important ecologically and scientifically, because many of these seeds are extremely resilient to weather conditions, right? Hybrid varieties are being made every single year by research institutes. There are hundreds of varieties released every year. Some are tolerant to salinity, some to drought. But again, climate is changing so fast that the need to change is also very fast. So that's why we're making more and more every year, and scientists are working day and night on producing new seeds. So the basic idea was, why don't we promote farmers to use the seeds that are locally available, which they are aware of, which they also prefer, and they know the complete growing characteristics of all of these seeds, right? As agriculture students and scientists, we go to farmers and we give them something known as the package of practices, which is the list of things you have to do to grow a crop from seed to grain, or when it reaches the consumer. And the most common thing I've noticed in all of these package of practices is it always includes chemicals. Use this, coat the seed with a theorem, use urea in your soils, or even when you harvest it, use certain chemicals for pest resistance. So there's chemicals in every single step of the cultivation, and farmer has lost control of the whole supply chain. And I believe farmers are scientists, and I believe farmers are also entrepreneurs. So this is the change we need to bring in farmers in India, and that's why I started Prakheti. Today Prakheti works with 5,000 farmers in India in Idukki region. We were also working on traditional rice conservation in Wayanad, where I realized that NGOs are paying money to conserve our traditional seeds. And I believe that's not really a viable option. I thought it should be a self-sufficient system. It should be economically viable for all farmers to do what they love and to conserve their seeds. And you won't believe it, all the farmers, let's say a farmer has like 10 acres of land. They grow hybrid varieties in those land, but they keep a small patch to grow traditional rice for themselves because they refuse to consume the hybrid varieties. They want the traditional rice for them and their family, right? So it clearly shows that we are lacking an ecosystem, right? We are lacking a support ecosystem to help farmers transition to agroecology, regenerative farming, to get access to seeds, get access to inputs which are natural farming oriented, and also get access to finance to make all of this possible. Because on one end we have policy which says we are going to promote organic agriculture, but on the other end we also have policies which heavily subsidizes fertilizers, and the people that farmers go to, which are the scientists or local shop owners to get advisory, are all inclined towards pushing the chemicals because of various incentives, policies, and the business structure which is in place right now by big agricultural companies. So this is what we wanted to change. So I carry these seeds around with me everywhere. So these are traditional seeds collected from different parts of India by our farmers. So we have like a very tiny network of farmers where we keep exchanging seeds, sharing it with people. And all, I understand that our scale is still small, but we're trying to build something step by step, try to incentivize them to grow these varieties. And most importantly, when they have grown something, we also help them get to the market. Right? Because growing traditional seeds is not enough, because the market dictates your growing choices, at least in India. If the market says you grow XYZ variety of rice, all the farmers are going to grow that, because that's how socioeconomics works. That's how we push these varieties, right? So we also need to ensure that the market for these varieties exists. When we go to major cities, we need to build a supply chain so that farmers can comfortably go there, sell their produce. We're doing that with farmers markets in Bangalore, a city in southern India, to promote traditional rice varieties. But the consumers are really happy to see these varieties. They love them. And they've heard of them during their childhood or as they grow up, but they simply can't find it even in their own states. So there's clearly a bridge, gap that needs to be bridged. So that is what we're trying to do with the seeds part of Prakheti. We currently have a seed bank of 450 plus varieties which we have collected over the last 2-3 years, traveling across South India. So I keep sharing it with people. And we only share those seeds which are relevant to them. Of course, I'm not going to promote a seed from northern India and southern India. So it's important that we also work on research on seeds, research on inputs, and also we bring an entrepreneurial spirit into this whole agroecological process, right? We give farmers the driving seat, you know, through initiatives like farmer producer organizations, collectives. Farmers are working together in the thousands. It's just we need to bring in some new energy, give them access to things like compliances, grant writing. These are some things which farmers are not aware of, but it is necessary to become a part of the entrepreneurial system. So with such combination of farmers' ability, knowledge, and traditional knowledge systems, indigenous traditional knowledge, and bridging this gap of compliances or like an entrepreneurial organized sector, I think we farmers can form collectives, and they can go to cities, they can produce and sell their own produce and get the fair price for what they're growing. And on the consumers, you get access to healthy food, because the food we are eating is full of chemicals. And our agrobiodiversity, at least in India, has declined by 86% in the last few years. So we're all eating the same food. We don't know where our seeds are coming from. And most importantly, the farmers are completely out of touch with the whole system that they were never consulted for or they were never involved in. They're just growing it, and they're not part of the process anymore. So we need farmers to be equal stakeholders, and we need more young people to get educated about this. Like, you know, agrobiodiversity exists. This is how crops can look. A tomato is not just that one yellow, red thing that you see in the market across the country. It can look in 100 different shapes and forms. So we need to standardize agroecology as well and promote it as much as possible. So that is what we're trying to do with Prakheti in South India specifically. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is George Bazongo, agronomist and agroenvironmentalist, director of program for TreeAid. TreeAid is a UK-based charity organization. We are working, you can say, 36 years now in the dry land of Africa for a mission to, unlock the potential of trees to fight against poverty and restore the environment. Yes, we are working through agroforestry and agroecology because, in the dryland of Africa, we have what we call the cycle of poverty. Cutting trees, planting crops, after 3-4 years, where we have to move away and the land will continue to degrade it, and then we continue. So, the 60 years, we are losing more than 100,000 of hectares of land in the countries with a succession of drought, of floodings, and poverty increasing, and also food and nutrition insecurity. That way, promoting agroforestry, because in the traditional systems, well, already moving from some forest where they cut the trees to produce, and then today they find that if they don't take care, it will be worse in the future. So we try to combine trees and crop production at the same space. So we were providing the technology to what trees to plant and how to sustain the use of the land through restoration. This is really important. And we are going the principle of that. The soil never lies. That's clear. The soil never lies. If you degrade it, it will not give you. If you give it something, it will give you what you need. That's clear. So if you have with this principle in our mind, we say, okay, if you want the trees to grow, the crop to grow too, we need to move by promoting now what we call the organic manure. Yes, mineral fertilizers, we are not promoting this alone, even in gardens. It's usually like 70-30. 70% organic manure, 30% mineral fertilizers. If not, with acidic of the soil. So in that sense, we are promoting what we call integrated soil fertility management, combining soil and conservation and restoration measure. We have this traditional system, what we call ZAI. We have a semi-moon. We have all things we are doing for also trees plantation, because we need to grow trees. Also in the nurseries to produce seedlings, and we combine in the same space by using the organic fertilizers. And in the past, we saw some big issues, because you ask communities, local communities, to harvest their crop stocks to produce organic manure. So what we do in the soil became vulnerable to erosion. First issue. Second issue, you need water. In a place where the water accessibility is a big problem, even from the home use. So what to do? We need to find a solution, and very hard to work. And also it needs long time in the past to produce this organic matter. So by trying to find a solution, we develop what we call the organic liquid manure. Very easy to produce. And we promote this through a woman first, because we find that they are the person who are involved, in what we call in gardens, where is what we call nutrition gardens, where we produce baobab, moringa seedlings, because we have the leaves after 3 months for the families, and also we produce vegetable. So then, through the farmers, the women, we starting to promote this. But the result was really amazing to see. And after 1 month, starting producing it, you can use the manure. Rather than 3 months in the past. And you use at one time the water you can have to produce this manure in a kind of a recipient like this. So you don't need to come back every time again with the water what we used to see in the past. So only one time they mix it, they cover, and 1 month later it's ready to be used. And it's liquid. Liquid is straight usable by the crops. At the same time, it's enrich the soil. So the benefit very huge and immediate results the farmers can really use. That's what we promote to overcome this issue of the hardness of producing the organic matter in this. We have also in the market what the farmers can access, but it's expensive. Poor people, you want to create them some expenses. So why not to promote with first investment, and then the rest they can do at the long term with some great impact in terms of crop production, because it's increased what we follow by university, the crop by 60%, and it helps the trees to grow 1.6 times faster than the other way of producing, or growing these trees. So that's what we are promoting, and we think that this will help to break the poverty cycle at some times, and then to bring back the soil at its normal production way. But we need to go for integrated fertility management, which combine all these at this farm level and to sustain, the activities people are doing in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I think that's one line I'll remember, that soil never lies, and it gives you back whatever you give it. So I think that's something for all of us to take back. A lot of you spoke about, the different kinds of ways in which you're promoting regenerative agriculture within the geographical region you're from. So it's India, Africa, Burkina Faso, Kenya, Brazil. Mauricio, you did mention that the very small pockets that, it's only a small percentage of the entire production that's actually agroecologically produced. So I think one question I have for all of you is, what are the challenges you see in scaling this up, both at an organization level and at a larger level, say within your country? What do you see as the main, say, top 2 or 3 challenges that you find? Anybody wants to take that?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I can. TRIAD is working in 6 countries in Africa, and what we promoted yet for now, I think in Burkina it's really spreading this technology, and that's also in Mali, but it's around three out of the 6 countries. This approaches it's now been applied, and the results are really important. But in terms of production, we need to be adopted by many people if we want to see a greater impact at the country level. First, and second level, we are working through the Minister of, with our collaborators, Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Environment people. They're even promoting these approaches in over initiative project, even government big project. But we did not assess yet what it can be have an impact. But we are sure that it's really because we continue to receive some people who want to learn from above it. Because there are some organizations who used to promote what we call an out of soil, out of soil production. But this is really limited. If you have a family of 10 people, you want to feed them across the year with a potential of only 3 months or 4 months crop production, you need to increase the production and the productivity. So it's good, but all of them now also starting to be interested about it because it's easy and manageable by the women, where we think that the workforce is really limited. So we didn't assess the level of adoption and the production at national level, but it's spreading amongst the NGOs and the government projects, which are, yeah. But we need to have partners. It's not only 3/8, but we did some tests. We had the university who been involved. We have some key good results showing the impact, and now people are continuing to use it in terms of model. Thank you.
Can I say?
Yeah, what is it?
It's nice to think that whenever we talk about agroecology and people think it's as a niche, and people always ask, but can agroecology feed the country, or can agroecology feed? And the answer is, well, family farming already feed everyone, because the big agribusiness only produces commodities for exportation. Actually, family farming is responsible for feeding 80% of the world population. But also, I will always say that it depends, because we need to have investment. We need to have long-term policies to assure that these producers that they have support. They have. Imagine when we say, okay, but the big agribusiness is really responsible for production of I don't know how much food. Yeah, but imagine if a small portion of the investment that throughout the last decades has been invested into the big agribusiness, the big industrial farming, agriculture, if a small portion of that were invested into agroecology, with technical assistance, with support, with long-term support, because even producers who want to transition towards agroecology, they need time for that the soil can recover, so that the species that he's working on, with all the ecosystems, we need to regenerate their ecosystem so that it can work as an ecosystem. So it needs time, it needs money, and it needs to be focused on that, because if not, that's what somehow we have. Like, people who work in agroecology, they are really, they are like really badass, you know, because they have so little, at least in Brazil, there's so little means to do that, but they do that because of what they believe, and they actually get their results, because their production is more resilient. They have more diversified production, but also they need to have access to the broader market. They have to be accessed by the cities, by the big consumer areas, so that they can thrive. But it's always a matter of time and investment.
Yeah, I think the major challenge has been a lot of push from the power side, I could say that. But I think what is helping in terms of the practice is that farmers have been convinced. You know, we had the Green Revolution agenda, which has totally failed. And even in Kenya now, we are revising some of the policies, because the agenda also goes all the way to the policies, and it brings the policies that are not favorable to the farmers. So what we are seeing is there's now a spike of change that is coming up. As I said, we have now the agroecology strategy in Kenya, and also we have the seed policy 2010, which is being revised to actually include aspects of farmer managed seeds, and actually recognizing community seed banks. And even in Kenya, our highest point of reference, that's the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it puts a very strong emphasis on Article 11.3b on the role of the country to protect indigenous seeds. So I think from that high-level perspective, we need policies that are really supportive. And I mean, the question that can agroecology feed the world, it is a question that we have all been asking, but I would say that we need more researchers to come on the ground and work with the farmers. I'm a strong believer of what we call the participatory action research that is with the farmers, for the farmers, and even sometimes moves to action-oriented, because I find maybe some of the research that is done, it doesn't go to the farmer level, and the research really working closely with the farmer. You know, sometimes you can go, yes, as a researcher, and the farmer will hold a lot of information, but we need to really understand some of these models that are working. And I'm happy the United States, they have the University of Vermont in Vermont that has launched an Institute of Agroecology, and I look forward to seeing what kind of evidence that they're going to come up, and I hope that more and more learning institutions really come up with this kind of research that has been missing or is there but is not collected, and it can help us to move agroecology to the next agenda. I'm happy you talked about the women, and I think in Africa also the women and the youth, they have been doing a lot of work, but we haven't been recognizing them and we have not been backing them. And as Pelham Kenya, we have come up with what we call the Africa Women Leaders in Agroecology, because a lot is happening but it's not being collected, and also we have a lot of inspiring stories from women, from youth, but no one is talking about them, and yet these are the major custodians when it comes to issues of agriculture, when it comes to issues of agroecology. And for me, today being a food and agriculture day, and this COP really focusing on climate finance, I look forward to the big question of are we able to really phase out industrial agriculture that has been contributing to a third of the greenhouse gas emissions that we are now talking about in the climate crisis, and facing the agroecological solutions, because we have very little budgets in the agriculture. The reports that have been just released through the Global Alliance for the Future of Food show that 1.5% of the budgets really go to sustainable agriculture. How are we going to be at the same level with our big brothers, if I can call them that, if we still have very little budgets going to agriculture and more so supporting the smallholder farmers? So I find that a major challenge, even in the food discussions that we have here at the COP. So we need more budgets and attention. Actually, the budgets for overall for agriculture, they are dealing 3% now, 2.5%. We need more budgets, and that's where the main problem is. And more stories from the media, from a global level and even a local level, and more so contextualized aspects. Because like in Africa, Asia, even Brazil, I think most of our farmers are smallholder farmers. So our challenges are different. And two, we are also having different issues. I know there is a lot of push on animal issues, but in Africa, our livestock production is on a small scale farmer perspective, it's a livelihood, and yeah, we need those kind of context specific so that we are able to move years together, but also looking at context specific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Anand.
I would like to split the challenges part into two sections. One is challenges that we as organizations face while implementing the solution that we are convinced in. One part of implementing what works is that the biggest challenge is the farmer's mindset. The farmer has been trained to do a system of farming for the last 6 to 7 decades. His father did it, his grandfather did it, and forefathers did it. Now I come and say that you don't have to put these chemicals, you don't have to put these things, you just do this. They are not willing to listen to us immediately because it's hard for them to change as a mindset. So what do? We have to overcome this mindset through repetitive awareness, education, and hand-holding. The third part is the most important part, where we do hand-holding. For example, it's a very bad example, but still I'm going ahead with it. Somebody is coming out of de-addiction from alcohol. Now he needs hand-holding until he completely streamlines his practices. So in the same way, when farmer is shifting from one system, chemical-based system, to regenerative systems, when he goes across his first pest attack or disease or any harvesting issues, he needs constant support for him to transition. And how do we give this hand holding? We are able to give it through technology, like bringing them into WhatsApp groups, giving them educational content, setting up a helpline where 7 days of the week, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., we are able to give this kind of services to farmers at free of cost, where when they are transitioning, they can be assured that within 24 hours, whatever problem that they face through, they'll get solutions from the organization which is training them. This has been playing a very critical role in transitioning. Second thing is that now we have done this pilot. We have transitioned 250,000 farmers in the last 2 decades to take up tree-based farming, or agroforestry as we call it, and regenerative agriculture. Now how do we scale it from 250,000 farmers to many more millions? For example, in Tamil Nadu, which is one of the 28 states in the country, we have 8 million farmers. And over 2 decades, we have been able to reach only 250,000 farmers. So we are nowhere near making these solutions as a mainstream solution. And for this to be scaled up as mainstream solutions, like Rosina was saying, the climate finance to support these farmers is very important, because today we don't have a level playing field. What do I mean by a level playing field? In the last 2 decades, reports have said that the cost of cultivation for a farmer in terms of buying inputs, his diesel cost, his electricity cost, his plowing cost has gone up by 9 to 12 times. But the price of food that he is able to sell to the market has gone up by 2 to 3 times. So the stage is set to fail. So this is another challenge. Second thing is that chemical agriculture is subsidized by the government in a very big way, but there are no incentives and support systems for farmers who are transitioning into agroecological practices. So this is again important, that we bring a level playing field between chemical farmers and regenerative farmers. So only then they will be able to cope up with the changing market situations and global climate change. So these are the 2 points that I wanted to share from our experience in India. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you. I think between the 4 of you, I think it was providing better market access, policy level changes, access to climate finance, or access to finance basically. I think that was the biggest one. And also hand-holding farmers right from where they are to bringing them towards regenerative agriculture. So we have a few minutes left. Can we take one quick question if anybody has?
Hi guys, thank you so much for the panel. My name is Tara, and I'm with an AI company that's doing supply chain traceability. We work with like large food and bev companies, different companies that basically are looking at ways like how can we source more regenerative agriculture in our supply chain. So something I'm wondering is how can like technology connect farmer groups or individual farmers, like you mentioned, sort of informal like WhatsApp groups, and so I think there's a lot of platforms out there that are trying to tackle this, but it's really like what the question is, like what makes sense in enabling farmers, but even if it's not direct enablement, like helping also these connect the ecosystem of players.
We have 2 minutes if anybody wants to quickly answer.
We came across a solution space in the United States where a particular company has developed an application where they onboard farmers and they onboard consumers, both of them. So this application, what it does is that basically they qualify the producers in terms of the quality of the produce that the farmer brings in, whether he is doing A, B, C, D practices to call it a chemical-free or a no pesticide residue food. Secondly, they also rate the consumers, whether the consumer has been prompt in paying up the farmer, the consumer has been paying the fair price to the farmer. So they have developed this at large scale where farmers and producers can directly meet up, and farmers are able to directly ship their ecologically grown produce directly to the consumers. So now these solutions has been done in pocketed areas. Now with the advent of technology and the ability of GIS platforms today, where it has become much more economical for us to deploy these tools on the ground with farmers, where we can have real-time monitoring systems of what they are doing, and with AI, where it is able to access data from very cost-effective sensors, piezometers, and so on and so forth that can be deployed in the soil, and this data can be assimilated, and AI can throw enough reports for these kind of platforms to build integrity and credibility for the farmer's produce. And this is what technology can give us. 5 years or 10 years, if somebody had asked me that is AI a curse or a boon, I would have said it is a curse. But today I changed my stand. There is a huge potential of this AI technology to scale up and ramp up these solutions in large scale so that it becomes cost effective for a farmer to access it and afford it.
Yeah. I think also we can use the AI also for the evaluation of to assess the soil fertility first at a large scale, and even also to monitor what's happening in terms of impact, which is really important. And also we can use the technology to spread, the capacity building, because we are facing some insecurity, and this allows us to develop what we call the digitalization of using voices, local language, and also some image to show how it's possible. And sometimes you do not need even the mobile phone networks and others. It's just, yes, mobile phone or tablet, and in this network, you share the trainings in local language using this digitalization, and it can spread and to build this capacity, because she was talking about investment, even this kind. Today, if you look at in our countries, the hundred million of dollars people are investing in mineral fertilizers. But when you check, these money are coming sometimes for in the countries where they are producing these mineral fertilizers. So they are willing to fund. It's coming like a credit, like loan and others. Our country will pay back with interest and others. Even we, our son, the next generation. But if we could have even 25% of this investment in the agroecology side, I'm telling you, we could do a lot. But unfortunately, people are looking at profit rather than sustain and make our soil more healthier, our food more healthier than others.
Thank you so much. I think we're at the end of the hour, so if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to them after.
Unfortunately, we don't have any
Yeah.
time for questions, but I'm sure you'll be outside.
Yeah, we'll be outside. The panelists will be outside, so you can
Can I get a photo
meet
of you
them.
up on the stage?
Sure.
Yeah.